I used to believe that marriage was about partnership and trust until that Christmas morning when Eleanor stood in our living room, holding divorce papers in one hand and a locksmith's business card in the other. Snow was falling outside our Victorian house in Portland, Maine, the one I'd spent the last 7 years meticulously restoring tile by tile, board by board, and she was telling me to leave. "Michael, it's time," she said, her voice as cold as the winter air seeping through the original stained glass windows I'd personally restored. "I've already spoken to my lawyer. You need to be out by this afternoon." I stood there in my flannel pajamas, coffee mug still warm in my hand, staring at the woman I'd been married to for 12 years. The Christmas tree lights blinked behind her, casting alternating red and green shadows across her face, a face I'd kissed goodnight just hours before. "It's Christmas Day," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "The kids are upstairs." "They're at my mother's," she replied, not meeting my eyes. "I took them over last night after you fell asleep. They don't need to see this." I set my coffee down on the mahogany side table, the one I'd found at an estate sale and refinished in our garage. Every piece of furniture in this room had a story, and most of those stories involved my hands, my time, my dedication to making this house a home. "Eleanor, what is this about?" Yesterday we were wrapping presents together. We were laughing about Tommy's letter to Santa. She finally looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before, a calculated coldness that made my stomach drop. "I've been unhappy for a long time, Michael. You're always working on this house, always fixing something, always—" "Building our life," I interrupted. "Everything I've done has been for us, for our family." "No," she shook her head, blonde, hair swaying. "You've been hiding in projects, avoiding real intimacy. And frankly, I've found someone who actually sees me." The words hit like a sledgehammer to my chest. "Someone who— Eleanor, are you saying you've been having an affair?" She lifted her chin defiantly. "David understands me. He's successful, ambitious. He doesn't spend his weekends covered in sawdust and paint. David." I knew exactly who she meant. David Richardson, the real estate developer who'd been circling our neighborhood like a shark, trying to buy up historic properties to tear down and replace with modern monstrosities. He'd approached me several times about selling, and I'd always refused. Now I understood why he'd been so persistent lately. "How long?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. "6 months," she said without flinching. "And before you ask, yes, I've already filed. My lawyer says with Maine's no-fault divorce laws, this will be straightforward. I'm keeping the house. It's been in my family for generations, after all." I almost laughed at the irony. Yes, the house had technically belonged to Eleanor's grandmother, but it had been a crumbling disaster when we moved in after our wedding. The roof leaked, the foundation was cracked, the electrical system was afire, hazard waiting to happen. I'd spent every weekend, every vacation, every spare dollar bringing it back to life. "Eleanor," I said carefully, "I've invested everything in this house. 7 years of labor, over $200,000 of my own money." "Which you chose to spend," she cut me off. "No one forced you. Besides, David's already offered to buy me out. He has big plans for this lot." My blood ran cold. "You're selling our home to a developer? After everything I've done to preserve it?" "It's not our home, Michael. It never was. My grandmother left it to me, remember? Your name isn't on any of the paperwork." I stood there, feeling the weight of her words, knowing she was wrong but choosing not to reveal my hand just yet. 3 years ago, when Eleanor's gambling problem had nearly cost us everything, I'd quietly paid off her debts she'd hidden from me until creditors started calling. In exchange, she'd signed a quitclaim deed transferring the property to both of us as joint tenants. She'd been so desperate, so grateful at the time, that she'd signed without really reading what she was signing. The document was sitting in my office safe, along with receipts for every penny I'd invested in the house. I see, I said quietly. And when exactly am I supposed to leave? The locksmith is coming at 3 p.m., she said, glancing at her phone. That gives you 6 hours to pack your things. You can stay at the Marriott downtown. I've already made a reservation in your name. 1 week, prepaid. After that, you'll need to make other arrangements. How generous, I said, the sarcasm barely contained. And what about Christmas dinner? The kids were expecting. David and I will handle Christmas dinner, she said, and I noticed she was wearing a new necklace, diamonds that caught the light from our tree. The children need stability right now. Stability? I couldn't help but laugh. You're kicking. Their father out on Christmas Day and calling it stability? Her face hardened. I'm not going to argue with you, Michael. This is happening whether you accept it or not. I suggest you start packing. I looked around the living room, at the crown molding I'd restored by hand, the built-in bookshelves I'd crafted from reclaimed lumber, the original hardwood floors I'd spent weeks refinishing on my hands and knees. Every inch of this house bore my fingerprints, my sweat, my love. All right, I said finally. I'll go pack. She seemed surprised by my calm acceptance. Good. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, my fingers trailing along the banister I'd stripped and restained last summer. In our closet, I pulled out my suitcases and began methodically packing my clothes. But I wasn't just packing randomly. I was selecting specific items, creating the appearance of a hasty departure while actually preparing for what would come next. From the bottom drawer of my dresser, buried beneath old sweaters, I retrieved a small fireproof box. Inside were the quitclaim deed, bank statements showing my investments in the property, receipts for materials and contractor payments, and photographs documenting the house's transformation. I slipped these documents into my laptop bag, along with backup drives containing digital copies of everything. As I packed, I could hear Eleanor downstairs on the phone, probably with David or her lawyer. Her voice carried the giddy excitement of someone who thought they were getting away with the perfect crime. She had no idea that her house of cards was built on a foundation of lies and forgetfulness. I made several trips to my car, loading my belongings into the trunk of my Subaru. The snow was falling heavier now, coating the neighborhood in pristine white. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, was standing on her porch, watching with concern. "Everything all right, Michael?" she called out. "Just fine, Mrs. Patterson," I replied, managing a smile. "Merry Christmas." She didn't look convinced, but nodded and went back inside. I wondered how many of our neighbors Eleanor had already told her version of events to. Portland's historic district was a small community. News traveled fast. By 2:30 p.m., I had everything I needed packed and loaded. I stood in the doorway of what had been our bedroom, taking one last look. The 4-poster bed I'd surprised Eleanor with on our 5th anniversary sat there like a monument to better times. The antique mirror I'd found and restored reflected my image, a 38-year-old man who looked older today than he had yesterday. Downstairs, Eleanor was waiting in the foyer, tapping her foot impatiently. She'd changed into a red dress I'd never seen before, probably a gift from David. The locksmith's van was already pulling up outside. "Here are your copies of the divorce papers," she said, handing me a manila envelope. "My lawyer will be in touch about the formal proceedings." I took the envelope without looking at it. "What about my workshop in the basement? My tools?" "You can arrange to collect them later," she said dismissively. "Once we've sorted out the legal details." The locksmith, a burly man who looked uncomfortable with the situation, began changing the locks on the front door. I watched him work, knowing that those new locks would become irrelevant very soon. "I guess this is goodbye then," I said to Eleanor. She nodded, already looking past me toward her new future. "It's for the best, Michael. You'll see that eventually." I walked out into the snowy afternoon, my footsteps crunching on the front path. I'd laid with antique bricks salvaged from a demolished factory. Behind me, I heard the door close and the new lock click into place. But as I sat in my car, watching the house recede in my rearview mirror, I wasn't filled with despair or anger. Instead, I felt a strange sense of anticipation. Eleanor thought. She'd played the perfect hand, but she'd forgotten one crucial detail from 3 years ago, a detail that would change everything. I drove to the Marriott, checked into the room she'd booked, and set up my laptop. Then I made a call to my own lawyer, Robert Chen, a sharp real estate attorney who'd helped me with several property matters over the years. "Robert," I said when he answered, "sorry to bother you on Christmas, but I need your help. My wife just kicked me out of our house and she's planning to sell it to a developer." "On Christmas Day?" He sounded incredulous. "That's cold, even for a divorce." "Here's the thing," I continued. "She thinks the house is solely in her name because it was her grandmother's. But 3 years ago, she signed a quitclaim deed adding me as a joint tenant. I don't think she remembers." There was a pause on the other end. "You have the original deed? And all the documentation of my investments in the property?" "Over $200,000 worth," Robert whistled low. "Well, that changes everything. She can't sell without your signature, and she certainly can't kick you out of your own home. Want me to send her lawyer a nice Christmas present?" "Not yet," I said, looking out my hotel window at the snow-covered city. "Let's let her think she's won for now. I want to see how far she and David are willing to go." "Playing the long game?" Robert chuckled. "All right, but don't wait too long. Document everything, every communication, every action she takes regarding the property." After hanging up, I ordered room service and opened my laptop again. I began creating a detailed timeline of events, uploading documents to a secure cloud server, and preparing for what would come next. Eleanor thought she'd orchestrated the perfect betrayal, but she'd forgotten that the quiet man who spent his weekends restoring our house was the same man who'd once saved her from financial ruin, and who'd protected himself in the process. As night fell over Portland, I sat in my hotel room, watching the snow continue to fall. Somewhere across town, in the house I'd rebuilt with my own hands, Eleanor was probably celebrating with David, planning their future, dividing up assets that weren't entirely hers to divide. I pulled out my phone and looked at photos of our children, Emma, 9, and Tommy, 6. They were at their grandmother's, probably wondering why Daddy wasn't there for Christmas dinner. Eleanor had made a crucial mistake in her calculation. She'd assumed I would react with anger, that I would fight her immediately and publicly. She didn't know that sometimes the best response to betrayal isn't a frontal assault. It's patience. The zai. Irony wasn't lost on me. Eleanor had accused me of hiding in projects, of avoiding intimacy by constantly working on the house. But those projects, that constant work, had given me both the deed to our home and the patience to wait for the right moment to reveal it. Every beam I'd reinforced, every tile I'd laid, every weekend spent in sawdust and sweat had been an investment. Not just in property, but in security. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Michael, this is David Richardson. Eleanor gave me your number. I'd like to discuss purchasing your interest in the house. Perhaps we can meet tomorrow." I stared at the message, almost laughing at his audacity. He was already trying to close the deal, probably imagining the modern monstrosity he'd build on our lot. I typed a simple reply. "I'll be in touch." Then I turned off my phone, poured myself a drink from the minibar, and settled in to plan my next move. Eleanor thought she'd ended our marriage with surgical precision, but she'd actually just begun a game she didn't know she was playing. And I held the winning card, a simple piece of paper that would turn her perfectly planned betrayal into a lesson about the importance of remembering what you sign. Outside, church bells rang across the city, marking the end of Christmas Day. It had begun with betrayal and eviction, but I knew it would end very differently. Eleanor had given me an unexpected gift, the clarity to see our marriage for what it had become and the opportunity to protect everything I'd built. As I drifted off to sleep in the unfamiliar hotel bed, I thought about the house, my house, standing, proud in the snow, its restored Victorian beauty a testament to patience and perseverance. Eleanor might have the new locks, but I had something far more powerful, the truth, the deed, and the time to let her reveal exactly how far she was willing to go. The game was just beginning, and I intended to play it perfectly the morning after. Christmas brought a different kind of cold, the kind that settles in your bones when you wake up in a hotel room instead of your own bed. I opened my laptop at 6 a.m., coffee from the lobby in hand, and began my research. David Richardson's property development company, Bayside Ventures, had quite the digital footprint. Their website showcased gleaming modern buildings where historic homes once stood, each project celebrated with phrases like breathing new life into tired neighborhoods and reimagining Portland's architectural future. I found our house listed on a real estate speculation blog, posted just 3 days ago. Sources indicate the historic Whitmore House on Maple Street may soon be available, prime location for mixed-use development. Someone had been planning this for a while. My phone buzzed. Eleanor's lawyer, Mitchell Graves. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. Mr. Thompson, this is Mitchell Graves representing Eleanor Thompson in your divorce proceedings. We need to discuss the terms of separation, particularly regarding the marital home. Please call my office at your earliest convenience. Marital home. Interesting choice of words from Eleanor's attorney, considering her position that it wasn't marital property at all. I decided to take a walk through our neighborhood, my neighborhood. The snow had stopped, but the sidewalks were still white, marked only by early morning joggers and dog walkers. I passed the Craftsman bungalow where the Johnsons lived, the Queen Anne where Dr. Martinez had her home office, the colonial revival that the Patels had lovingly restored. Each house told a story, held memories, represented families who had chosen preservation over profit. Standing across from my own house, I watched as a BMW pulled into the driveway, David's car. He stepped out, expensive coat perfectly tailored, and used a key to enter. A key. They'd already given him a key to my home. My phone rang. Robert Chen. Michael, I've been doing some research. Did you know your wife took out a home equity loan 6 months ago? What? No, that's impossible. Any loan would require both our signatures. Not this one. She used an old deed, the one from before you were added to the title. The bank didn't do their due diligence. She borrowed $300,000. Let me guess, I said, watching David through our living room window. Right around the time she started seeing him. The timing is certainly suspicious. And here's something else. I found permits filed with the city for demolition of a historic structure at your address. Filed by Bayside Ventures, dated 2 weeks ago. Before she even asked for a divorce. Exactly. This has been planned for a while, Michael. They're not just after a divorce. They're orchestrating a complete takeover of the property. I ended the call and walked back to the hotel, my mind racing. Eleanor hadn't just betrayed our marriage. She'd been systematically working to strip away everything I'd built. But she'd made one crucial error. She'd forgotten about that desperate night 3 years ago when I'd saved her from financial ruin. Back in my room, I opened the safe where I'd stored the quitclaim deed. The document was simple but powerful. Eleanor Marie Whitmore Thompson hereby grants, bargains, sells, and conveys to Michael James Thompson and Eleanor Marie Thompson as joint tenants with rights of survivorship. All right, title and interest. In the following described real property. I photographed every page, then locked it away again. Time to make some moves of my own. My first call was to Beverly Hunsinger, president of the Portland Historical Preservation Society. Beverly had been fighting developers like David for decades. Michael, I heard about you and Eleanor. I'm so Sorry. Don't be Beverly. I need your help. David Richardson is trying to demolish the Whitmore house. Over my dead body, she snapped. That house is eligible for historical designation. We've been trying to get Eleanor to apply for years. What if I told you I'm now co-owner of the property? Are you serious? Eleanor always insisted it was solely in her name. Things change. Can you start the emergency historical designation process? I'll file the paperwork today, but Michael, if David's involved, he'll fight dirty. His lawyers have deep pockets. So do I, Beverly. So do I. My next call was to Martha Brennan at the Portland Press-Herald. Martha specialized in real estate corruption and had written several exposés on David's questionable business practices. Thompson, I was wondering when you'd call. Word is your wife's selling out to Richardson. Martha, what do you know about David's relationship with City Planning Commissioner Frank Delgado? Why do you ask? Because someone fast-tracked demolition permits for a property that hasn't even been sold yet. Now that's interesting. I've been tracking suspicious permit approvals for months. Want to compare notes? We agreed to meet for coffee that afternoon. The pieces were falling into place. At 11 a.m., my phone rang again. Eleanor. Michael, we need to talk about your things in the workshop. I'm listening. David's contractor needs to assess the basement. Can you come get your tools today? Actually, Eleanor, I've been thinking. Maybe we should handle this divorce without lawyers. Keep things simple. She paused, surprised. Really? I mean, yes, that would be better. Less expensive. Exactly. Why don't we meet for lunch? Neutral ground. The rustic table? Okay, 1 o'clock? Perfect. Let her think I was ready to capitulate. I arrived at the restaurant early, choosing a table where I could see the entrance. Eleanor walked in right on time, looking nervous but determined. She'd dressed carefully, professional but not too formal, probably trying to project reasonableness. Michael, she said, sitting down, I'm glad you're being sensible about this. Well, you made some valid points yesterday. Maybe I have been too focused on the house. She relaxed slightly. I didn't want it to happen this way, on Christmas, but David said. She caught herself. David said what? Just that timing was important for the sale. Ah, yes, the sale. How much is he offering? $2 million. Cash. The land alone is worth $2 million? I whistled appreciatively. That's generous. And what's your timeline? He wants to close by the end of January. Start demolition in February. Demolition permits take months to get approved. She shifted uncomfortably. David has connections. He says it won't be a problem. I'm sure he does. Tell me, when did you two start planning this? Planning what? Michael, I told you. The affair? The sale? The perfectly timed Christmas eviction? When did it all start? Her mask slipped for a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. Does it matter? What's done is done. You're right, I said calmly. What's done is done. Like, that home equity loan you took out 6 months ago. Her face went pale. How did you? Or the demolition permits that were filed before you even asked for a divorce. Tell me, Eleanor, was any of our marriage real? Or was I always just the handyman who increased your property value? You don't understand, she hissed. David showed me what I was worth, what the property was worth. You were content to live in that old house forever, fixing things, puttering around, building a home, creating something lasting, while sitting on a gold mine. Do you know what we could do with $2 million? We? I thought this was about you and David. She straightened. It is. But I'm willing to be fair. You'll get your share in the divorce settlement. How generous. And what about the children? They'll adjust. David has a beautiful penthouse downtown. Modern, clean, none of that old house dust and maintenance. And their father? You'll have visitation. Every other weekend, standard arrangement. I studied her across the table. This woman. I'd loved for 12 years. When had she become someone who could so casually dispose of a family, a home, a life we'd built together? I have a counter-proposal, I said. I'm listening. You and David can have the penthouse, the modern life, whatever you want. But you leave the house alone. She laughed, actually laughed. Michael, be realistic. That house is my inheritance. It's my choice what happens to it. Is it, though? You seem very certain about that. Of course I'm certain. Gran left it to me specifically. Your name isn't on any of the paperwork. Funny thing about paperwork, Eleanor. Sometimes people forget what they've signed. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. What are you talking about? Nothing. Just thinking out loud. Enjoy your lunch with David. I stood to leave. Wait, we haven't discussed your tools, the workshop. Keep them. Consider them a parting gift. I walked out, leaving her confused and slightly worried. Good. Let her wonder what I knew, what I had planned. Let her report back to David that I wasn't rolling over as easily as they'd hoped. That afternoon, I met Martha at a cafe near the newspaper office. She arrived with a laptop and a thick folder of documents. Okay, Thompson, here's what I've got. Over the past 2 years, David Richardson's company has acquired 7 historic properties in Portland. In each case, demolition permits were approved in record time by Commissioner Delgado's office. Let me guess, Delgado has some connection to Richardson? His wife is on the board of Richardson's charitable foundation. They vacation together. Their kids went to the same private school. And nobody's investigated this? I've been trying. But I needed a smoking gun. These permits for your house, filed before the property even changed hands, might be exactly what I need. I showed her the timeline I'd created. Eleanor's affair beginning, the home equity loan, the permit applications, the planned Christmas eviction. This is gold, Martha said. But I need more. Any chance you could get me documentation of Richardson's offer? Proof that he's been planning this takeover? I might be able to help with that, I said, thinking of the eager text David had sent. Me. He wants to meet with me, probably to buy me off. Perfect. Maine is a one-party consent state. You can legally record the conversation. That evening, I called David. Richardson, he answered, his voice smooth and confident. This is Michael Thompson. You wanted to meet? Michael, yes. I think we should talk man to man. Clear the air. Tomorrow morning? My office? How about the Bayside Diner? 8 a.m.? A pause. I prefer my office. And I prefer neutral ground. Take it or leave it. Fine. Bayside Diner. 8 a.m. After hanging up, I prepared for our meeting. I charged my phone, tested the recording app, and reviewed everything I knew about David's business practices. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about exposing a pattern of corruption that had been destroying Portland's historic neighborhoods. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Eleanor, about how our marriage had unraveled so completely. Had there been signs I'd missed? Moments when I should have seen what was happening? Or had I been too focused on sawdust and restoration, as she claimed? My phone buzzed at midnight. A text from Tommy. Dad, when are you coming home? Mom says you went on a trip. I miss you. My 6-year-old son, texting from his grandmother's house, confused and missing his father. I typed back, miss you too, buddy. See you soon. Love you. Eleanor could take the house, the money, even my tools. But she wasn't taking my children, not without a fight. The next morning, I arrived at the diner early. I chose a booth in the back, away from the breakfast crowd, and started my phone's recording app. David walked in right on time, wearing another perfect suit, carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Michael, he said, sliding into the booth across from me. Thanks for meeting. Let's skip the pleasantries, David. What do you want? He smiled, all teeth. Direct. I like that. Okay, cards on the table. I want to buy the Whitmore house. Eleanor's already agreed to sell, but she mentioned you might have some emotional attachment to the property. Emotional attachment. That's one way to put it. Look, I understand. You've put work into the place. Sweat equity. I respect that. Which is why I'm prepared to offer you a generous settlement, separate from whatever the divorce court decides. How generous? He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a check, slid it across the table. $50,000. $50,000, I said flatly. For your trouble, clean break. You sign a simple quitclaim deed, renounce any interest in the property, and walk away. And if I don't? His friendly mask slipped slightly. Then things get complicated. Legal battles, court costs, and in the end, Eleanor owns the house anyway. Why put yourself through that? Maybe because I actually care about that house, about what happens to it. Nostalgia is expensive, Michael. That property is worth $2 million as land alone. Once I develop it, luxury condos, retail space on the ground floor, we're talking $10–15 million in profit. And another piece of Portland's history gets erased. He leaned back, studying me. You sound like those Preservation Society cranks. Progress requires sacrifice. That house is falling apart anyway. Actually, it's in perfect condition. No, I restored every inch of it, which is why I'm offering you money. Your work increased the property value. I'm acknowledging that. How long have you been planning this? The affair with Eleanor, the property grab, was it all part of your development strategy? His smile turned cold. Business is business. Eleanor approached me, actually. Said she was tired of living in a money pit, tired of you spending every weekend playing Bob Vila instead of paying attention to her. So you saw an opportunity. I saw a woman who deserved better, and a property that deserved to reach its full potential. I pulled out my phone, pretended to check a message, made sure. The recording was still running. Tell me about Commissioner Delgado, I said casually. David's eyes narrowed. What about him? Just curious how you get demolition permits approved so quickly. Usually takes months. I have a good relationship with the city, know how to navigate. The bureaucracy. And Delgado helps with that navigation? Frank understands the importance of urban development. He's a visionary like me. Does his wife enjoy being on your foundation's board? David's face darkened. I think we're done here. Take the check or leave it. But know this, I get what I want. Always have. Your little house project is over. He stood up, straightened his suit jacket. One more thing, I said. Does Eleanor know about the permit applications you filed too? Weeks ago? Before she even filed for divorce? He paused, just for a second. But it was enough. Eleanor knows what she needs to know. Good luck, Michael. You're going to need it. After he left, I stopped the recording and saved it to 3 different cloud storage services. Then I ordered breakfast and called Martha. Did you get what you need? She asked. Oh, yes. He practically admitted to the whole scheme. Even brought up Delgado himself. Beautiful. I'm running the story tomorrow. Front page. My next call was to Robert Chen. Time to play our hand? He asked. Almost. Let's wait for Martha's article to hit. I want Eleanor to see exactly who she's been sleeping with. That afternoon, I decided to do something I'd been avoiding. I called Eleanor's mother, Patricia. Michael? She sounded surprised. I've been trying to make sense of all this. Eleanor won't tell me anything. Patricia, I'm sorry you're caught in the middle. How are the kids? Confused. They keep asking why Daddy isn't here. Eleanor just says you're working. Can I speak to them? Of course. Emma came on first, my beautiful 9-year-old trying to sound brave. Hi, Dad. Are you coming home soon? Soon, sweetheart. I promise. Mom says we might be moving. To a tall building with an elevator. Do you want to move? No. I like my room. And my window seat. And the secret compartment you built in my closet. I like those things too, Emma. Don't worry about moving just yet, okay? Tommy was next, his 6-year-old voice small and uncertain. Daddy, I had a bad dream. The house was gone. My throat tightened. It was just a dream, buddy. The house is still there. Promise? Promise. After the call, I sat in my hotel room, staring at the quitclaim deed. 3 years ago, Eleanor had been desperate, terrified of losing everything to her creditors. I'd refinanced my retirement account, sold my father's watch collection, done everything possible to save her. And she'd signed this document without hesitation, grateful for my help. Now she'd forgotten all of that. Or chosen to forget. My phone buzzed. A text from Beverly at the Historical Society. Emergency designation filed. Committee meets Friday. Can you attend? I replied. Wouldn't miss it. Another text, this one from Martha. Story's ready, running tomorrow. You might want to give Eleanor a heads up. I thought about it, then decided against warning her. She'd made her choices. Now she could live with the consequences. That evening, I took a walk through downtown Portland. Christmas lights still twinkled in shop windows. Families strolled along the waterfront. And in the distance, I could see the neighborhoods where David had already left his mark. Sleek towers rising where historic homes once stood. I thought about my own house, about the months I'd spent stripping paint from the original wainscoting, the weekends repointing the brick foundation, the satisfaction of bringing something beautiful back to life. Eleanor saw it as hiding from intimacy. I saw it as an act of love for our home, our family, our community. Tomorrow, Martha's article would expose David's corruption. Friday, the Historical Society would vote on protecting our house. And sometime very soon, I would reveal the quitclaim deed that made me co-owner of the property Eleanor thought was hers alone. But tonight, I just walked, remembering better Christmases, wondering when everything had gone so wrong, and planning for the battle ahead. Eleanor and David thought they'd won. They were about to learn that sometimes the quiet man working in the basement has more power than the smooth-talking developer in the expensive suit. The game was far from over. In fact, it was just getting interesting. The Portland Press-Herald hit doorsteps at 6 a.m. Thursday morning. By 6:30, my phone was exploding with calls and texts. Martha's article was everything I'd hoped for and more. Historic homes for sale. Developer's cozy relationship with city officials raises questions. The front page featured a photo of David Richardson shaking hands with Commissioner Delgado at a charity gala, alongside a chart showing 7 historic properties demolished after expedited permit approvals. My house was listed as pending demolition, with a note about permits filed before the property had even changed hands. Eleanor called at 7:15. I let it go to voicemail. Michael, what have you done? David's lawyers are all over this. Call me immediately. 5 minutes later, another call. David this time. Also straight to voicemail. You're making a mistake, Thompson. This article is full of lies. My lawyers will bury you. I sipped my coffee and smiled. Let them panic. Robert Chen called at 8. Have you seen the paper? Front row seat to the show. Well, it's about to get more interesting. Eleanor's lawyer just contacted me. They want an emergency meeting. Apparently, she's suddenly very interested in mediation. Funny how that works. Tell them I'm busy until after the Historical Society meeting tomorrow. You sure? They seem pretty desperate. Exactly. Let them sweat. By noon, Martha's article had gone viral on social media. The Portland Historical Preservation Society's Facebook page was flooded with comments supporting the designation of my house. Someone had even started a petition, Save the Whitmore House. I spent the afternoon preparing for tomorrow's Historical Society meeting. Beverly had sent me the agenda. My house was the first item. I gathered photographs showing the restoration work, documentation of the original Victorian details I'd preserved, and research on the architect who'd designed it in 1889. Around 3 p.m., there was a knock at my hotel room door. I opened it to find Eleanor standing there looking frazzled. Her usually perfect hair was windblown, her makeup smudged. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the room. "By all means, come in." She whirled to face me. "Did you orchestrate that article?" "I simply told the truth to a reporter, something you might try sometime." David's furious. His investors are backing out. The mayor's office is calling for an investigation. Sounds like his problem, not mine. "It is your problem," she snapped. "If this deal falls through, we lose everything." "We?" I thought there was no "we" anymore. "Isn't that what you said on Christmas?" She sank onto the edge of the bed, suddenly looking exhausted. "Michael, I may have been hasty. Maybe we can work something out." "Work something out? Like what? Unhave an affair? Unkick me out of my home? Unplan to demolish everything I've built?" "I made a mistake, okay?" "David promised. He said we'd be rich. That the kids would have everything they could ever want. The kids have everything they want. A home, 2 parents who love them, a neighborhood full of friends. Or they did until you decided to blow it all up. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. The house always needs something. The bills never stop. And you're always working on it. Always choosing the house over me." I studied her, trying to find the woman I'd married in this stranger's face. "Eleanor, every hour I spent on that house was for us, for our family. I wasn't hiding from you. I was building something permanent in a world full of temporary things." "Well, it doesn't matter now," she said, straightening. "David's pulling out. The whole deal is dead. Are you happy? Is that why you're here? Because your boyfriend's running scared?" "I'm here because—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Because maybe we should reconsider the divorce. For the children's sake." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Yesterday you had already picked out curtains for David's penthouse. Today you want to save our marriage? What's really going on, Eleanor?" Her mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something like fear. "There might be some complications with the house. Legal complications." "Such as?" David's lawyer mentioned. "Something about joint ownership. Said there might be an issue with the title. I told him that's impossible, but what? But then I remembered that night 3 years ago, when you helped me with my debts." I said nothing, waiting. "Michael, did I sign something back then? Something about the house? You don't remember?" "It was a difficult time. I was desperate, scared. You handled everything." "I did. I paid off $75,000 in gambling debts that you'd hidden from me. Debts that were about to destroy us." She flinched. "I know, and I was grateful. Am grateful. But did I sign a quitclaim deed?" "Yes, you did. Making us joint owners of the house." The color drained from her face. "No, that's not. I wouldn't have." "You did. And now you can't sell without my signature. Can't kick me out of my own home. Can't demolish it for your boyfriend's condo project." She stood up abruptly. "You tricked me." "I saved you. There's a difference. I'll fight this. My lawyer will—" "Will what? The deed is legal, properly filed, notarized. You signed it of your own free will." She grabbed her purse, heading for the door. "This isn't over." "No," I agreed. "It's just beginning. See you at the Historical Society meeting tomorrow." After she left, I called Robert. She knows about the deed. Came crawling back, suddenly interested in saving our marriage. Predictable. "What's your play?" "Stay the course. Let's see what happens at tomorrow's meeting." That evening, I got a text from Emma. "Mom's crying. Did you make her cry?" My heart sank. I called Patricia immediately. "Let me talk to Emma." When my daughter came on the line, I spoke gently. "Honey, sometimes grown-ups have disagreements. It's not your fault, and it's not your job to fix it." But why is Mom so sad? And why aren't you here? It's complicated, sweetheart. But I promise you, no matter what happens between Mom and me, I will always love you and Tommy. Always. Are you and Mom getting divorced? I hesitated, then decided on honesty. We might be. But that doesn't change how much we both love you. I don't want you to divorce. I want us to stay in our house. I'm working on keeping the house, Emma, I promise. After the call, I sat in the darkening hotel room, wrestling with guilt. My children were suffering because of adult failures, Eleanor's betrayal, my secrets, our collective inability to hold our marriage together. But I couldn't let that guilt make me surrender everything I'd worked for. My phone buzzed. A text from David. We need to negotiate. Meet me tonight, alone. I replied, no thanks. See you at the Historical Society meeting. His response was immediate. You're making a mistake. I can make your life very difficult. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I opened my laptop and reviewed the evidence I'd compiled. The quitclaim deed, bank statements showing my investments in the house, before and after restoration photos, the recording of David admitting to his relationship with Delgado. Around midnight, Martha called. Michael, you need to hear this. I just got a tip that David's trying to get an emergency injunction to stop tomorrow's Historical Society vote. On what grounds? Claims the process is tainted because you're friends with Beverly Hunsinger. Says it's a conflict of interest. That's ridiculous. Beverly's the president. Of course I know her. Ridiculous or not, he's got a judge who might listen. One of his golf buddies. Of course he does. I thought for a moment. Martha, how quickly can you run a follow-up story? Something about David trying to interfere with the democratic process? I'm already writing it. Online edition goes live at 6 a.m. Perfect. And Martha? Thank you. Thank you. This is the story I've been chasing for 2 years. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with strategies and contingencies. At 5 a.m., I gave up and went for a walk. Portland was beautiful in the pre-dawn darkness, street lamps reflecting off puddles from overnight rain. I found myself standing across from my house again, looking up at the window where Eleanor was probably sleeping, or lying awake, wrestling with her own demons. The house stood solid and serene, its Victorian bones strong beneath the careful restoration. I remembered the day we'd moved in, Eleanor pregnant with Emma, both of us giddy with dreams of the future. I'd carried her across the threshold, promising to make this house worthy of our family. I'd kept that promise. She had not. At 8 a.m., I arrived at City Hall for the Historical Society meeting. The room was packed. Neighbors, preservation activists, reporters. Martha gave me a thumbs up from the press section. Beverly stood at the podium, looking determined. Eleanor arrived with her lawyer, sitting in the back row. David entered moments later with a team of attorneys, his face tight with anger. He'd seen Martha's second article. Beverly called the meeting to order. First item, emergency historical designation for the Whitmore House, 247 Maple Street. We'll hear from the property owner, then open the floor for public comment. Eleanor's lawyer stood. Point of order. My client, Eleanor Thompson, is the sole owner of this property. I stood as well. Actually, I'm co-owner, joint tenant with full rights. The lawyer looked flustered. We dispute that claim. Robert stepped forward, holding a folder. I have the deed right here, filed with the county 3 years ago. Would the board like to review it? Beverly nodded. Please. As the board members examined the deed, David's lead attorney stood. Madam President, we've filed for an emergency. Injunction to halt these proceedings. This entire process is tainted by your personal relationship with Mr. Thompson. Beverly's eyes flashed. My relationship with Mr. Thompson is the same as my relationship with any concerned citizen working to preserve Portland's heritage. Your motion is noted and rejected. This is a public meeting, operating under established bylaws. The attorney started to object. but Beverly cut him off. "Sit down, counselor. Mr. Thompson, would you like to address the board?" I stepped to the microphone, my prepared notes in hand. But looking out at the packed room, neighbors who'd watched me work on the house, friends who'd helped haul debris, strangers who simply cared about preserving history, I decided to speak from the heart. 7 years ago, my wife and I moved into a house that had been neglected for decades. The roof leaked, the foundation was cracked, the electrical system was dangerous. Everyone said we were crazy to take it on. But I saw something in that house. The craftsmanship of another era, the dreams of the family who built it in 1889, the potential to create something lasting for my own family. So I went to work. I stripped 15 layers of paint from the original woodwork. I researched period-appropriate fixtures. I learned traditional plaster techniques to repair the walls. Weekend by weekend, dollar by dollar, I brought that house back to life. Some people think I was hiding from my marriage, using the house as an excuse to avoid intimacy. But they don't understand. Every nail I drove, every board I sanded, every tile I laid was an act of love. I wasn't just restoring a house. I was building a home for my children, creating something they could be proud of, something that would outlast us all. Now, there are those who see this house as nothing more than a valuable piece of land, a place to build luxury condos that will make them rich. They see dollar signs where I see memories. They see profit where I see heritage. I'm asking this board to recognize what we all know in our hearts. Some things are more valuable than money. Some things deserve to be preserved, protected, passed, down to future generations. The Whitmore house is one of those things. The room erupted in applause. I sat down, my hands shaking slightly. David's attorney tried to speak next, talking about property rights and economic development, but the crowd was restless, openly hostile to his arguments. When public comment opened, neighbor after neighbor spoke in favor of designation. Mrs. Patterson talked about watching me work every weekend, rain or shine. Dr. Martinez described how I'd helped her research her own home's history. Even people I didn't know spoke about the importance of preserving Portland's architectural heritage. Eleanor never said a word. She sat in the back, shrinking lower with each testimonial. Finally, Beverly called for a vote. All in favor of granting emergency historical designation to the Whitmore house? 5 hands went up immediately. The 6th board member, an older man I didn't recognize, hesitated, glancing at David. Then he too raised his hand. The motion passes unanimously. The Whitmore house is hereby granted emergency historical protection, pending full review by the State Preservation Office. The room exploded in cheers. David stormed out, his attorneys trailing behind. Eleanor remained seated, staring at her hands. I made my way through the crowd, accepting congratulations, until I reached her. "Eleanor." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "You win." This isn't about winning. It's about preserving something worth saving. I meant what I said yesterday, about reconsidering the divorce. I sat beside her, suddenly exhausted. "Eleanor, you kicked me out on Christmas Day. You were planning to sell our home to your lover. You tried to erase everything I've built. Why? Would I trust you now?" "Because I'm scared," she whispered. "David's gone. His investors are furious. The bank's calling about that home equity loan, and I don't know what to do." "What about love? What about 12 years of marriage?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know if I ever understood what love was. My parents' marriage was about money, status. I thought that's what mattered. But watching you fight for that house, hearing what the neighbors said, maybe I was wrong about everything. Maybe you were. Is it too late? For us?" I looked at her. Really looked, for the first time in months. She seemed smaller somehow, diminished by her choices. The confident woman who'd handed me divorce papers on Christmas was gone, replaced by someone lost and frightened. I don't know, I said honestly. Trust is like an old house, Eleanor. Once the foundation cracks, it takes a lot of work to make it solid again. I want to try, for the kids, for us. Then we start with honesty. Complete honesty. About the affair, the money, all of it. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay. And counseling. Real work, not just going through the motions. Yes. And the house stays in both our names. No more schemes, no more secrets. I promise. I stood up, offering my hand. Then let's go home. She took it, her grip tentative. We walked out of City Hall together, past the reporters, past the celebrating neighbors, into the cold December morning. I didn't know if our marriage could be saved. I didn't know if I could ever fully trust her again. But I knew one thing for certain: the house would survive. I had made sure of that. As we drove toward Maple Street, Eleanor reached over and touched my arm. Michael? The things you said in there, about every nail being an act of love, did you mean that? Every word. I never saw it that way. I thought you were choosing the house over me. I was choosing to build something permanent, something our children could inherit, something that would last longer than both of us. I'm sorry I didn't understand. I'm sorry I didn't explain it better. We pulled into our driveway. The morning sun was hitting the restored stained glass above the front door, sending colored light dancing across the porch. It looked like a homecoming. I need to get the spare key from Mrs. Patterson, I said. The locks were changed, remember? Eleanor reached into her purse and pulled out a key. I had a copy made this morning, before the meeting, just in case. I looked at her, surprised. You were that sure I'd win? No. I was that sure you'd fight. And I realized, that's the man I married. The one who doesn't give up on things worth saving. We stood on the porch, both hesitating. So much had happened since Christmas morning. So much trust had been broken. Ready? I asked. Ready. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house welcomed us back with familiar creaks and settling sounds, like an old friend offering comfort. There was work ahead, on the marriage, on rebuilding trust, on healing the wounds we'd inflicted on each other. But for now, we were home. My phone buzzed, a text from Emma. Grandma says we can come home tomorrow. Is that okay? I showed it to Eleanor. She smiled through fresh tears. Tell her yes. Tell her we'll both be here. I typed the response, then added, and we're never leaving again. As I hit send, I thought about the quitclaim deed still safe in my hotel room. Eleanor didn't know it yet, but I planned to create a trust, putting the house in our children's names. Neither of us would ever be able to sell it without the other's consent, and when we were gone, Emma and Tommy would inherit it intact. Some things were worth fighting for. Some foundations, once properly repaired, could bear weight again. And sometimes, the act of preservation extended beyond houses to the families that lived within them. The morning sun streamed through the restored windows, filling our home with light. Outside, I could hear neighbors gathering, probably planning a celebration. Inside, Eleanor and I stood in the foyer, surrounded by the careful work of 7 years, preparing to rebuild something more complex than any house: a marriage, a family, a future. It wouldn't be easy. Trust, like old wood, required patience to restore. But I had learned something about restoration. With enough care, enough skill, enough love, even the most damaged structures could be made beautiful again. The house had taught me that. Now it was time to apply those lessons to everything else worth saving. The children came home the next morning, a Saturday that felt simultaneously like a new beginning and an epilogue to a story I wasn't sure had truly ended. Emma burst through. The front door first, her backpack bouncing as she ran straight into my arms. Dad! You're really here. I lifted her up, feeling her familiar weight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. I told you I'd be here, sweetheart. Tommy followed more cautiously, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, eyes darting between Eleanor and me as if trying to read the temperature of the room. At 6, he was already learning to navigate the emotional minefields of adult relationships. Hey, buddy, I said, kneeling down. Come here. He ran the last few steps, wrapping his small arms around my neck. Are you staying forever now? Eleanor and I exchanged a glance over the children's heads. I'm staying, I said carefully. Mom and I are going to work on things. Patricia, Eleanor's mother, stood in the doorway with the children's overnight bags. Her expression was unreadable, but I caught a flicker of something. Disappointment? Relief? Before she schooled her features into neutrality. I'll just leave these here, she said, setting the bags down. Eleanor, call me later. Of course, Mom. Thank you for everything. After Patricia left, we settled into an awkward facsimile of normal family life. The kids wanted to show me their Christmas presents, tell me about their time at Grandma's, ask 1,000 questions about why I'd been gone. Eleanor and I deflected as best we could, but children have an uncanny ability to sense what adults try to hide. That evening, after tucking the kids into bed, Eleanor and I sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen where she'd served me coffee on Christmas morning before handing me divorce papers. The contrast wasn't lost on either of us. We need to talk about David, I said. She flinched. What about him? Is it really over? He called me this morning, said I was a liability now, that his reputation couldn't afford the association. She laughed bitterly. Funny how quickly love evaporates when money's involved. Did you love him? She was quiet for a long moment. I thought I did. He made me feel valuable, important, like I was more than just a mother and wife. You were always more than that. Was I? Because from where I sat, I was the woman who kept the house running while you played carpenter in the basement. The old argument, still sharp enough to cut. I wasn't playing, Eleanor. I was building something. I know that now. Seeing all those people at the meeting, hearing what the house meant to them, I finally understood what you were doing. But for years, it felt like you were choosing wood and nails over me. And you chose David over our family. Yes. She met my eyes. I did. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life. We sat in silence, the kitchen clock ticking loudly. Outside, winter wind rattled the windows I'd weatherproofed last fall. The home equity loan, I said finally. How bad is it? $300,000, due in 6 months unless we refinance. What did you do with the money? She looked down at her hands. Some went to David's investment fund. He promised 20% returns. The rest? I spent it. Clothes, jewelry, trips when I told you I was visiting my sister. Jesus, Eleanor. I know. I was living in a fantasy. We'll need to figure out how to pay it back. David's investment fund is being investigated now. The money's probably gone. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. So we're $300,000 in debt. Our marriage is in shambles. And you've been lying to me for months. Years, she whispered. What? The gambling didn't stop 3 years ago, Michael. I just got better at hiding it. The room spun slightly. You've been gambling this whole time? Online mostly. Sports betting, poker. I thought I could win back what I owed, make everything right. How much? Another 50,000, maybe more. I stood up abruptly, needing distance. So everything, the affair, the divorce, trying to sell the house, it was all about money? It started that way. But then David made me feel, I don't know, seen, desired. Like I mattered beyond being someone's wife and mother. You mattered. To me. You always mattered. Did I? Because you never said it. You'd spend hours talking about wood grain and original fixtures, but you never talked to me. Not really. I leaned against the counter, processing this new information. Part of me wanted to walk out, take the kids, start over somewhere else. But another part, the part that had spent 7 years restoring broken things, wondered if this too could be fixed. We need help, I said finally. Professional help, not just marriage counseling. You need to see someone about the gambling. I know. And full financial transparency. Every account, every debt, everything on the table. Okay. And the house? Goes into a trust for the kids. Neither of us can touch it without the other's consent, she nodded. Whatever you think is best. That night, I moved back into our bedroom but slept on an air mattress on the floor. Eleanor offered to take the couch, but I refused. If we were going to rebuild, we had to face our problems head-on, even the uncomfortable ones. The next morning, Sunday, I woke early and went to my workshop in the basement. Everything was exactly as I'd left it on Christmas Eve. Tools hanging neatly, sawdust swept into piles, half-finished projects waiting patiently. I ran my hands over my workbench, feeling the familiar grooves and scratches, grounding myself in something solid. Dad? I turned to find Emma on the stairs, still in her pajamas. Hey, early bird, what are you doing up? I heard you down here. Are you building something? Just thinking about what needs fixing. She came closer, running her small hand over the workbench like I had. Are you and Mom going to be okay? The question hit me hard. How do you explain adult failures to a 9-year-old? We're trying, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and have to work hard to fix them. Like when you fixed the broken window in my room? Exactly like that, only harder. I can help, she offered solemnly. I'm good at fixing things too. I hugged her tight. You already are helping, just by being you. Later that morning, Eleanor and I sat down with our laptops and bank statements, laying bare the full extent of our financial disaster. The numbers were worse than I'd imagined. Between the home equity loan, credit cards, and various online gambling sites, we were nearly $400,000 in debt. We'll have to sell the house, Eleanor said quietly. No. Michael, be realistic. Even with both our salaries, we're not selling. I'll take on extra work. Consulting, private restoration projects, whatever it takes. Why? Why fight so hard for a house? I gestured around the kitchen. Because this isn't just a house. It's Emma's height marks on the doorframe. It's Tommy's. Handprints in the concrete when we repoured the back steps. It's 12 years of Christmas mornings and birthday parties and regular Tuesday nights. You don't sell that. She was quiet then. David would have torn it all down. David would have destroyed everything that makes this place special. That's the difference between building and developing. One creates homes, the other creates profit. That afternoon, while the kids played upstairs, I called Robert Chen. How did it go with the reconciliation? He asked. Complicated. She's been gambling again. We're in serious debt. How serious? I told him the numbers. He whistled low. That's significant. You sure you want to stay in this marriage? I don't know. But I know I want to keep my family together if possible. And I definitely want to keep the house. Well, the good news is the historical designation makes it virtually impossible for creditors to force a sale. The bad news is you'll need a solid plan to handle that debt. I'm working on it. That evening, David's threats materialized in the form of a process server at our door. He was suing for breach of contract, claiming Eleanor had verbally agreed to sell him the property. This is harassment, Eleanor said, scanning the papers. This is David, I corrected. He doesn't lose gracefully. We added the lawsuit to our growing pile of problems, another log on a fire that threatened to consume everything. Monday morning, I returned to work at Crawford Architectural Restoration, where I'd been senior project manager for 8 years. My boss, Jim Crawford, called me into his office immediately. Michael, I saw the paper. Historic designation for your house. Congratulations. Thanks, Jim. Listen, I've got a proposal for you. The Blackstone estate in Cape Elizabeth. You know. It? I did. A massive Victorian mansion that had been abandoned for decades. What about it? New owners want a complete restoration. 6-month project, maybe longer. They specifically asked for you after seeing the article about your house. Jim, I appreciate it, but it's a $200,000 project, Michael. Your commission would be 20%. $40,000. Not enough to solve everything, but a start. When would I need to begin? Next week. But there's a catch. It's in Cape Elizabeth. You'd need to be on site most days. An hour's commute each way. Less time at home, less time to repair my marriage. But also, money. We desperately need it. Can I think about it? Take a day. They're eager to start. That night, I discussed it with Eleanor. To her credit, she immediately understood the sacrifice involved. You should take it, she said. We need the money. It means long days. I won't be here for dinner most nights. Weekends will be consumed with catching up on our own house. I'll manage. I need to learn to manage on my own anyway. There was something in her voice, not self-pity, but genuine recognition of her own failures. What about your job? I asked. Eleanor worked part-time as a medical transcriptionist, a job she'd taken after Tommy started school. I already talked. To my supervisor, I can go full-time, work from home. It's not much, but every bit helps. And the gambling? I called the hotline today. There's a Gamblers Anonymous meeting tomorrow night. I'm going. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception, but found only exhaustion and determination. Okay, I'll take the job. The next few weeks fell into a grinding routine. Up at 5 a.m., drive to Cape Elizabeth, spend 10 hours crawling through the Blackstone estate's decaying grandeur, drive home to help with homework and bedtime, then work on our own finances until midnight. Weekends were for our house, small repairs I'd been neglecting, plus preparing documentation for the final historical designation review. Eleanor, to my surprise, stepped up. She attended GA meetings religiously, took on extra transcription work, and managed the children's schedules without complaint. She even started learning basic home maintenance, watching YouTube videos on fixing leaky faucets and patching drywall. I want to understand, she explained one Saturday, finding me in the basement. What you see in all this old wood and plaster. I handed her a piece of original molding from the Blackstone estate. Run your hand along the grain. Feel those subtle ridges? That's old-growth pine, harvested before industrial logging. Trees that were hundreds of years old when they were cut. You can't get wood like this anymore. She traced the pattern thoughtfully. It's beautiful. Every piece tells a story. This molding was hand-carved by a craftsman who probably apprenticed for years to learn his trade. When I restore it, I'm connecting with him across time, preserving his work for another generation. I think I'm beginning to understand, she said softly. The Blackstone project consumed February and March. I discovered hidden treasures, original wallpaper under 7 layers of paint, a sealed-off servant staircase, newspapers from 1895, used as insulation. Each find energized me, reminded me why I loved this work. At home, progress was slower but steady. Eleanor's GA sponsor, a tough-talking woman named Diane, became a regular presence. Our marriage counselor, Dr. Patel, pushed us to communicate honestly, to excavate the roots of our problems. Michael, she said during one session, you use work as a shield. When emotions get difficult, you retreat to tangible problems you can solve with your hands. And Eleanor, she continued, you use fantasy, gambling affairs to escape feelings of inadequacy. Both of you are avoiding true intimacy. It was a hard truth, but a necessary one. The crisis came in early April. David's lawsuit had been grinding through the courts, but his lawyers suddenly offered a settlement. Drop the historical designation, sell him the house for $3 million, and he'd forgive all claims. $3 million, Eleanor said, staring at the offer letter. We could pay off everything, start fresh somewhere else. No. Michael, just consider, no. This house isn't for sale. Not for $3 million, not for $30 million. That's easy for you to say. You don't lie awake calculating interest rates, wondering how we'll make next month's payments. I do, actually. Every night. She stood abruptly. I can't do this anymore. The pressure, the debt, the constant worry. Maybe David was right. Maybe I'm not cut out for this life. What are you saying? I'm saying, I don't know what I'm saying. I just know I'm drowning, and that money looks like a life raft. It's not a life raft, it's a trap. The minute we sell, David wins. Everyone who fought to preserve this neighborhood loses. Our children lose their home. They'd gain financial security. At what cost? She left the room, and I heard the bedroom door slam. I sat alone in the kitchen, wondering if I was being selfish, if my attachment to the house was worth losing my marriage. Again. My phone rang. Jim Crawford. Michael, I've got news. The Blackstone owners are so impressed with your work, they want to hire you for their property in Bar Harbor. Another restoration, bigger budget, $600,000. My commission would be $120,000. Combined with the first project, enough to significantly reduce our debt. There's just one thing, Jim continued. They want you to move up there for the summer, lead a full crew, really dive deep into the project. The whole summer? May through September. I know it's a lot to ask with your family situation. I thought about Eleanor's words, about drowning and life rafts. When do they need an answer? End of the week. After hanging up, I went to the basement, needing the clarity that came with working with my hands. I picked up a piece of trim I'd been restoring, letting the repetitive motion of sanding calm my racing thoughts. Dad? Tommy stood on the stairs, clutching his dinosaur. Hey, buddy, you should be in bed. I heard Mom crying. I set down the sandpaper. Come here. He climbed into my lap, something he hadn't done in months. Are you and Mom going to be okay? The same question Emma had asked months ago. We're trying very hard. I don't want to move away. What makes you think we're moving? Mom was looking at houses on her computer. New houses. My heart sank. Despite everything, Eleanor was still considering escape. Tommy, do you like living here? He nodded emphatically. I like my room, and my secret fort in the attic, and the way the stairs creak when you step on them just right. Me too, buddy. Me too. After putting Tommy back to bed, I found Eleanor in our room, laptop open to a real estate website. Looking for new beginnings? I asked. She closed the computer. Just exploring options. I got a job offer. Bar Harbor, $600,000 project. Her eyes widened. That's wonderful. I'd have to live there all summer. Oh. She was quiet. That's a long time. But it might solve our money problems, or at least make them manageable. And the house? We keep it, no matter what. She lay back on the bed staring at the ceiling. I went to David's office today. My blood ran cold. Why? To tell him to drop the lawsuit, to leave us alone. And he laughed. Said I was pathetic, crawling back to a man who cared more about old wood than his own wife. Said I'd be back when you abandoned me again. I never abandoned you, didn't you? All those weekends in the basement, all those evenings researching, period fixtures instead of talking to me? I thought I was building our future, while I was living our present, alone. We lay in silence, the weight of our failures pressing down like the old house settling around us. Take the job, she said finally. We need the money. And maybe Maybe some distance will give us perspective, or drive us further apart. We're already apart, Michael. At least this way we might find our way back. The next morning, I accepted the Bar Harbor position. As I prepared for another separation from my family, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was at a crossroads. The house would survive. The historical designation had ensured that. But would my marriage? Would my family? I spent my last week at home finishing urgent repairs, creating detailed maintenance lists for Eleanor, and trying to store up memories with my children. Emma helped me organize my tools, her small hands sorting screws and nails with careful precision. Tommy assisted by handing me random wrenches and telling elaborate stories about dinosaur construction workers. The night before I left for Bar Harbor, Eleanor and I stood in the backyard, looking up at our house, our beautiful, burdensome, beloved house. "Promise me something," she said. "What?" "Promise me that whatever happens with us, you'll keep fighting for this place. For the kids, I promise. And you promise me something. Anything. Keep going to meetings. Keep being honest. Keep trying. I promise. We didn't embrace. We didn't kiss. But for the first time in months, we understood each other. The house stood between us, both the source of our division and the bridge to our potential reconciliation. In its walls, our entire history was written: love and betrayal, trust and deception, destruction and restoration. As I drove away the next morning, I looked in the rearview mirror at my family standing on the porch I'd rebuilt board by board. Eleanor held Tommy's hand while Emma waved bravely. The morning sun caught the restored stained glass, sending rainbow patterns across their faces. I was leaving again, but this time was different. This time, I was leaving to save what we'd built, not escaping from what we'd broken. The road ahead was long, the outcome uncertain. But like the careful restoration of any historic structure, saving a marriage required patience, skill, and above all, the belief that some things were worth preserving. The house would wait. My family would endure. And maybe, just maybe, we'd find our way back to each other, stronger for having weathered the storm. Bar Harbor in May was nothing like Portland. Where our neighborhood was all Victorian charm and urban density, this coastal town spread itself languidly along Frenchman Bay. Its summer cottages, mansions by any other name, perched like aged sentinels overlooking the Atlantic. The Worthington estate, my home for the next 5 months, was a sprawling shingle-style masterpiece that hadn't seen proper maintenance since the Reagan administration. I arrived on a Monday morning, fog rolling in from the ocean, carrying the salt smell that would permeate my clothes and hair for months to come. The caretaker, a gruff local named Pete, met me at the rusted iron gates. "You the restoration fellow from Portland?" he asked, sizing me up. "Michael Thompson. You must be Pete. I hope you brought your work boots. This place is a horror show." He wasn't exaggerating. As we toured the property, I cataloged disaster after disaster: rotted sills, a failing roof, water damage throughout the 3rd floor, chimneys listing dangerously. And that was just the exterior. Inside, previous owners had modernized with criminal enthusiasm, dropping ceilings, gutting original kitchens, painting over mahogany wainscoting. "Jesus," I muttered, running my hand along a wall where someone had installed fake wood paneling over hand-carved oak. "This is worse than I expected." "Owners bought it 6 months ago," Pete explained. "Rich folks from Boston want it restored in time for their daughter's wedding in September? 4 months to undo a century of damage?" Pete shrugged. "They got more money than sense, but they pay on time." That night, alone in the caretaker's cottage, I called Eleanor. The kids were already in bed, and she sounded tired. "How's the project?" she asked. "Overwhelming. The photos didn't do justice to how bad it is." "How was your day?" "Tommy had a meltdown at school. Something about missing you." Emma's pretending everything's fine, but she asked if we could FaceTime. You every night. Of course, I'll call it bedtime tomorrow. Michael. She hesitated. I went to another meeting today. That's good. Diane says I need to be more honest about my triggers. Apparently, home renovation stress is one of them. Ironic, isn't it? What do you mean? All those years watching you pour everything into our house, seeing the bills pile up, feeling the pressure of living in a constant construction zone. It made me want to escape, to gamble. I sat with that for a moment. I never realized. How could you? I never told you. I just smiled and made coffee and secretly placed bets on my phone while you were in the basement. I'm sorry, Eleanor. Don't be. I made my choices. I need you to know it wasn't simple. Nothing about our problems was simple. After we hung up, I lay awake thinking about the complexities of marriage. How two people could live in the same house yet inhabit completely different realities. I'd seen our home renovation as an act of love. She'd experienced it as a source of unbearable pressure. We'd been speaking different languages all along. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Wake at dawn, work until dusk, collapse in exhaustion. The crew I'd assembled, local craftsmen with generations of experience, respected traditional methods and shared my reverence for historical accuracy. We stripped away decades of improvements, revealing the bones of what had once been a masterpiece. Evenings were for FaceTime with the kids. Emma would show me her homework. Tommy would perform elaborate puppet shows with his dinosaurs. Eleanor usually stayed in the background, occasionally joining to discuss house matters or bills. The water. Heater's making that noise again, she said during one call. Did you check the pressure relief valve like I showed you? Yes, and I bled the radiators in Emma's room when they started clanking. Good, that's good. These moments of domestic competence seemed to boost her confidence. She was learning the house's quirks, developing the same intimate knowledge that had taken me years to acquire. 3 weeks into the project, I got an unexpected visitor. David Richardson stood in the driveway of the Worthington estate, looking out of place in his designer suit. Quite a step up from Portland, he said, surveying the property. Though I suppose you're still playing in the past instead of building for the future. What do you want, David? To make you a final offer. $1 million for your share of the Portland house. Cash. Today. Not interested. Your wife is drowning in debt. You're living 4 hours away. Your marriage is hanging by a thread. Take the money, Michael. Start fresh. Like you did? How's that working out for you? His face darkened. You cost me everything. The mayor's investigating all my previous projects. Investors are pulling out. Elena won't return my calls. Eleanor. What? Her name is Eleanor. If you're going to have an affair with someone's wife, at least get her name right. He stepped closer. You think you've won? You're a glorified handyman playing preservationist while your wife falls apart. My wife is in recovery. My family is healing. My house is protected. What do you have, David? He didn't answer, just turned and walked back to his BMW. As he drove away, I realized something had shifted inside me. The anger I'd carried since Christmas was fading, replaced by something else. Pity for David, understanding for Eleanor, and a clarity about what really mattered. That night, Eleanor called with news. The bank approved our refinancing application. Lower interest rate, longer terms. We can make this work, Michael. That's fantastic. And I got a raise. My supervisor says I'm the best transcriptionist they have. I'm proud of you. Really? Really. You're doing amazing things, Eleanor. Taking responsibility, facing your problems, keeping our family together while I'm away. There was silence, then soft crying. Eleanor? I'm sorry. It's just, that's the first time in years you've said you're proud of me. Then I'm the one who should be sorry. I should have said it more. We have a lot to be sorry for. Yeah, we do. June brought challenges on both fronts. At the Worthington estate, we discovered extensive termite damage in the main support beams. The repair would require innovative solutions and careful engineering. My specialty, but also a massive budget increase. At home, Eleanor faced her own crisis. Her mother, Patricia, had been diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer. The prognosis was good, but Eleanor was struggling with the added stress. I want to be strong for her, she told me during one late-night call. But all I can think about is escaping to a casino. But you're not. No. I'm going to meetings instead. Sometimes 2 a day. That's strength, Eleanor. Real strength. It doesn't feel strong. It feels like barely hanging on. Sometimes that's what strength looks like. In July, the Portland Historical Society completed its final review. Our house received full historical designation with special commendation for the quality of restoration work. The certificate arrived at the Worthington estate, and I photographed it to send to Eleanor. We did it, she texted back. You did it. We did it together, I replied, and meant it. The work in Bar Harbor was transformative, not just for the house, but for me. Each day brought new challenges that required creative solutions. I found myself applying lessons from my own marriage to the restoration. Sometimes you had to strip everything down to the foundation before you could rebuild properly. In August, Eleanor surprised me with a visit. She drove up with the kids on a Friday afternoon, their car pulling into the estate's driveway just as we were finishing for the day. Daddy! Tommy burst out of the car and ran to me. Emma followed more sedately but hugged me just as tight. Eleanor stood by the car, uncertain. She looked different, healthier, more confident, but still carrying the weight of our shared history. Hi, she said. Hi. This is unexpected. Good unexpected or bad unexpected? Good. Definitely good. I gave them a tour of the estate, pointing out the restored details, explaining our process. Eleanor asked intelligent questions, showing genuine interest in the work. The kids were fascinated by the hidden servants' passages and the dumbwaiter system. That evening, we had dinner at a local seafood restaurant. For the first time in months, we felt like a family again. No pressure, no accusations, just parents enjoying their children's excitement over lobster rolls and ocean views. After the kids were asleep in the cottage's guest room. Eleanor and I sat on the porch, listening to waves crash in the distance. The house looks amazing, she said. You're really gifted at this. It's not just me. I have a great crew. Still, you see potential where others see problems. You always have. Is that what you saw in our marriage? Potential? She was quiet. For a moment. I saw problems. You saw potential. Maybe we both need to see both. I've been thinking about that, I admitted. About how I focused so much on fixing our house that I neglected to maintain our marriage. And I was so focused on escaping our problems that I almost destroyed everything worth saving. We sat in comfortable silence, a shared understanding growing between us. Michael? She said eventually. I want to come home. You are home. The house is as much yours as mine. No, I mean, I want us to come home. To our marriage. To really try again. I looked at her in the porch light. This woman I'd loved and lost and was maybe finding again. I want that too, but slowly, carefully. Like restoring a house? Exactly like that. One board at a time. She reached for my hand, and I took it. The next morning, I showed Eleanor and the kids around Bar Harbor. We visited Acadia National Park, climbed Cadillac Mountain, explored tide pools. Tommy collected shells while Emma took photos with my phone, documenting everything with her newfound interest in photography. She's been obsessed since you left, Eleanor explained. Says she wants to document houses like you restore them. That evening, while the kids played on the cottage lawn, Eleanor showed me her 6-month sobriety chip. I got it yesterday. That's actually why we came up, to celebrate with you. 6 months. That's incredible. Diane says the hard part isn't stopping. It's staying stopped, especially when life gets normal again. Is that what we're doing? Getting normal? I hope so. A new normal, anyway. They stayed through Sunday, and when they left, the cottage felt impossibly empty. But something had changed. The distance between us, emotional, not just physical, had shortened. We were finding our way back to each other, carefully, tentatively, but with genuine hope. The final month in Bar Harbor flew by. The Worthington estate was transformed, its original grandeur restored but updated for modern living. The owners were thrilled. The wedding was a success, and my reputation as a restoration specialist was secured. On my last day, my crew threw a small party. Pete, who'd become a friend, pulled me aside. "You did good work here, Thompson. This old place has life in it again." "Thanks, Pete. Couldn't have done it without you all." "What's next for you?" "Home. My own restoration project." "The house in Portland?" "The family in Portland." I drove home on a crisp September morning, the Maine coast giving way to inland forests painted in early autumn colors. As I crossed into Portland, my phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "Welcome home. We're waiting." Pulling into our driveway, I saw them on the porch, Eleanor, Emma, and Tommy, standing in front of our beautiful Victorian home. The afternoon sun caught the restored gingerbread trim, the freshly painted shutters, the copper gutters I'd installed last fall. But this time, I saw more than architectural details. I saw my daughter's artwork in the front window, my son's bicycle leaning against the porch, my wife's garden beginning to bloom again. Eleanor met me halfway up the walk. "How does it feel to be back?" I looked at her, at our children, at our home. Like everything's exactly where it should be. That night, after a family dinner that felt both familiar and new, Eleanor and I sat in our living room, the room where she'd handed me divorce papers 9 months earlier. The Christmas tree was long gone, but the space felt warmer somehow, more lived in. "I have something for you," I said, pulling out a wooden box. "What is it?" "Open it." Inside was a set of old keys, not to our house, but to the Worthington estate. The owners gave them to me. Said if I ever want to go back, check on the work, the cottage is mine to use. That's wonderful. I thought maybe, next summer, we could all go, like a family vacation, but I could teach you and the kids about restoration, if you're interested. Eleanor smiled, and for the first time in years, it reached her eyes. "I'd like that. I'd like to understand what you see in these old places." "It's not just what I see. It's what could be. With enough patience and work. Like us?" "Exactly like us." That night, I moved back into our bedroom, not to the air mattress on the floor, but to our bed. We lay side by side, not touching, but closer than we'd been in years. "Michael?" Eleanor whispered in the darkness. "Yeah?" "I know we have a long way to go. I know trust takes time to rebuild." "It does. But I want you to know. I'm committed. To recovery, to our marriage, to this family. No more running. No more hiding in the basement. Deal." Outside, I could hear the familiar sounds of our neighborhood. Cars passing, dogs barking, the whistle of the late freight train. Inside, the house settled around us with its comforting creaks and sighs, holding our story in its walls. We had survived betrayal, addiction, financial crisis, and separation. The house had survived neglect, renovation, and threats of demolition. Both had emerged scarred but stronger, protected by law and love respectively. As sleep came, I thought about all the careful restoration work ahead, not just on houses but on hearts, about the patience required to strip away damage without destroying the underlying structure, about the skill needed to match new pieces to old, creating something seamless and whole. Our marriage, like our house, would never be exactly what it was before. Too much had happened. Too many layers had been stripped away. But perhaps it could be something better, stronger for having been tested, more beautiful for showing its history. The last thought before sleep took me was of the quitclaim deed, still in my safe. That piece of paper had saved our house, but it was just paper. What would save our marriage was the daily work of choosing each other, of building trust board by board, nail by nail. Tomorrow I would wake up in my own bed, in my own house, with my family around me. Tomorrow, the real restoration would begin. 6 months later, on Christmas Eve, I stood in the same living room where Eleanor had handed me divorce papers exactly 1 year ago. But everything was different now. The Christmas tree twinkled in the eye's corner, stockings hung from the mantel I'd restored, and the sound of Eleanor's laughter drifted from the kitchen where she was baking cookies with the kids. "Dad, look!" Tommy ran in, flour dusting his pajamas. "We made dinosaur cookies!" I examined the misshapen cookie he proudly displayed. "That's definitely a T-Rex. Good job, buddy." Emma followed, carrying a tray of more recognizable shapes. "Mom, let me use the vintage cookie cutters you found at that estate sale. The ones from the 1940s? Those are special. Like our house," she said simply, and my heart swelled. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, apron tied over her sweater, looking radiant. The haunted, desperate woman from last Christmas was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, clearer, more present. "Michael, can you check the furnace? It's making that sound again." I smiled. A year ago, she wouldn't have noticed the furnace's quirks. Now she knew every sound our house made, every creak that meant all is well versus needs attention. As I headed to the basement, I reflected on the months since my return from Bar Harbor. We'd attended counseling religiously, both together and separately. Eleanor had celebrated her 1-year sobriety milestone last month with a small party in our dining room, the same room where I'd discovered her secret debt. The furnace just needed a filter change. As I worked, I heard footsteps on the stairs. "Need help?" Eleanor asked. "Almost done. But company's nice." She sat on the bottom step, watching me work. "Remember last Christmas? When you kicked me out and tried to steal our house to pay your gambling debts?" She winced. "When you put it that way, I'm kidding. Sort of. I was so lost, Michael. So convinced that money would solve everything, that David was my salvation. And now? Now I know salvation comes from within. And from hard work. And from having a partner who sees the potential in broken things." I finished with the furnace and sat beside her. We're all broken things. But worth restoring? Always worth restoring. That night, after the kids were asleep, Eleanor and I exchanged gifts. She handed me a flat package wrapped in vintage paper. "Open it," she urged. Inside was a framed photograph, our house, taken from across the street with our family standing on the porch. But it wasn't recent. The photo was from 7 years ago, right after we'd moved in, the house still shabby, our faces young and hopeful. "Where did you find this?" I asked, moved. "In a box in the attic. I was going through old things. Part of my recovery process. Found this and realized we were happy then. Before the gambling, before David, before everything fell apart. We were happy with our broken house and our dreams. We're happy now too. Different happy, but still happy. Better happy," she agreed. "Because we chose it, fought for it. My gift, to her, was smaller but significant. A key ring with 2 keys. One's to the workshop," I explained. "Your workshop now too. I want to teach you everything I know about restoration." "And the other?" to a safety deposit box, where I've put the deed to our house, now officially in trust for Emma and Tommy. Neither of us can sell without the other's consent, and when we're gone, it passes to them. Tears filled her eyes. You're protecting it forever. I'm protecting us forever. Later, as midnight approached, we stood at our bedroom window, watching snow fall on our neighborhood. The houses glowed with Christmas lights, each one a testament to families who'd chosen preservation over profit. David's company filed for bankruptcy last week, Eleanor said quietly. I saw it in the paper. I know. Do you feel vindicated? No. Just grateful. Grateful I fought for what mattered. The house? You. Us. Our family. The house was just the battlefield. She leaned against me. I love you, Michael. Thank you for seeing past my broken pieces. Thank you for letting me restore us. As Christmas day dawned, I heard the kids stirring, eager to open presents. Eleanor was already awake, making coffee in the kitchen I'd renovated with my own hands. The house hummed with contentment, its bones strong, its heart full. I thought about the quitclaim deed that had saved everything. Not just our home, but ultimately our marriage. That simple document, signed in desperation 3 years ago, had become our salvation. But paper alone couldn't have rebuilt what we'd destroyed. That took work, patience, and the belief that some things are worth saving. Downstairs, Tommy shouted with joy over his new tools. Real ones, child-sized but functional. Emma exclaimed over her vintage camera, ready to document our ongoing restoration projects. Eleanor caught my eye across the room and smiled, holding up her 18-month sobriety chip, my real Christmas gift to her, earned through her own. Hard work. Our house stood strong around us, every beam and board a testament to the power of patient restoration. And our marriage, like the house itself, bore the marks of its history, not hidden or erased, but celebrated as proof of survival. Some things break suddenly like trust on Christmas morning, others crumble slowly like neglected foundations. But with enough love, skill, and determination, anything worth saving can be restored. Board by board, day by day, we'd rebuilt not just a house, but a home. Not just a marriage, but a partnership. Not just a family, but a legacy. As snow continued to fall outside, I raised my coffee mug in a quiet toast to second chances, to the wisdom of legal protection, and to the enduring truth that the most valuable things in life aren't for sale. They're for keeps.